Adaobi was the kind of girl everyone admired, but few truly understood. Her beauty was the kind that made heads turn, but it wasn't just her looks that drew people in. Adaobi had something rare, a heart full of kindness and a spirit that was never afraid of hard work. In her little village of Omuoma, she was the one young men dreamed about, and the one young women aspired to be like. Her mornings began before the sun could even stretch its arms. With her wrapper tied tightly around her waist, Adaobi would fetch water from the stream, humming songs that seemed to make the birds jealous. By the time the sun kissed the rooftops, she had already swept the compound, fed the chickens, and started selling akara at the market. Her akara was famous, not just because it was delicious, but because Adaobi always served it with a warm smile and a kind word. But behind the smiles and the sweet aroma of fried beans, Adaobi had dreams, big dreams. She didn't want to stay in the village forever. She wanted to go to the city, start her own business, and live a life that would make her late mother proud. Her father, Papa Adaobi, was her biggest cheerleader. "My daughter," he would say, tapping his walking stick on the ground, "you are not just a star, you are the whole galaxy. Go and shine." Despite her ambitions, Adaobi was grounded. She respected her elders, greeted everyone with a cheerful nduo, and never looked down on anyone. This balance of humility and ambition made her unique. Everyone in Omuoma believed Adaobi was destined for greatness. But life, as Adaobi would soon learn, had its own plans. One sunny afternoon, while she was selling akara, a young man walked into the market. He was tall, with a confident stride and a smile that could make even the coldest heart melt. His name was Obina. Adaobi noticed him immediately, not because he was handsome, but because he bought 3 plates of akara and paid double the price without haggling. "Keep the change," he said, flashing her a grin that made her heart skip. Adaobi tried to keep her composure. "Thank you, sir," she replied, avoiding his gaze. But as he walked away, she couldn't help but wonder who he was. Was he a visitor? A trader? Or maybe someone passing through? What Adaobi didn't know was that this brief encounter with Obina was the beginning of a story that would change her life forever. Days turned into weeks, and before Adaobi could fully understand how it happened, she and Obina had become inseparable. Their connection was easy and natural, like 2 puzzle pieces that fit perfectly together. They spent long evenings walking through the village paths, laughing at each other's jokes, and sharing dreams of a better future. Obina wasn't like the other men Adaobi had met. He was soft-spoken, ambitious, and always seemed to know the right words to say. He didn't have much, but he had big dreams, dreams Adaobi couldn't help but believe in. "I'll make it one day," Obina would often say, his eyes sparkling with determination. "I just need time, Adaobi. When that day comes, you'll never lack anything again." Adaobi believed him. She believed in him so much that she started ignoring the whispers of her friends, who weren't as convinced. "Why are you wasting your time with Obina?" her closest friend, Ngozi, would ask, her tone dripping with concern. "He doesn't have anything, Adaobi. You're too good for him. You deserve a man who can take care of you, not one who depends on you." Adaobi would only smile and shake her head. "Ngozi, love is not about money. Obina is a good man, and I know he'll make it. I just need to support him until then." And support him she did. On days when Obina struggled to make ends meet, Adaobi would show up at his one-room apartment with a basket of food. Yam, egusi, or even fried fish when she could afford it. Sometimes, she would give him small amounts of money, even though she didn't have much herself. "Use this to take care of yourself," she'd say, placing the money in his hand. Obina would look at her with so much gratitude that it made her heart swell. But things began to change when Obina's landlord started showing up at odd hours, banging on the door and shouting for his rent. "Obina, go pay my money," the man roared one morning, loud enough for the entire compound to hear. "How many months I go wait? If pay by the end of this week, pack your load comet for my house." Adaobi was there when it happened. She had come to drop off some food, only to find Obina pacing the small room, his face tense with worry. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Adaobi, I'm trying, but things are not working out." Adaobi sat quietly, her heart aching for him. She wished she could do more to help, but she also knew this was a problem even her kindness couldn't solve. The next day, Adaobi couldn't shake off the feeling of shame and pity she felt from witnessing Obina's landlord's outburst. It hurt her to see him so defeated. Without thinking twice, she reached into her savings, a small stash of money she had been keeping for emergencies, and handed Obina 45,000 Nigerian nairas. "Here," she said softly, pressing the envelope into his hand. "Use this to pay the rent." Obina looked at her with wide eyes, unable to speak for a moment. "Adaobi, I can't take this. You've done enough already," he protested, but she silenced him with a shake of her head. "Don't argue, Obina," she replied firmly. "Just promise me you'll keep pushing, okay?" With tears glistening in his eyes, Obina nodded. "Thank you, Adaobi. I'll never forget this." A week later, as they sat under a mango tree behind Obina's compound, the world seemed a little lighter. The shade from the tree offered relief from the hot sun, and the two of them sat close, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet laughter. "I've been thinking," Obina said suddenly, his voice breaking the gentle rustle of leaves above them. "What if I start a small business? Maybe something that doesn't require much capital, like selling secondhand clothes or repairing phones?" Adaobi's eyes lit up. "That's a good idea. Obina, what do you need to start?" Obina hesitated, scratching the back of his neck. "I'll need some money, but I hate to keep depending on you." "It's not right, Adaobi. You've already done so much for me." Adaobi reached out and placed her hand on his. "We're in this together, Obina. If you succeed, we both win. Tell me what you need, and I'll see what I can do." Meanwhile, Ngozi, Adaobi's closest friend, seemed to be living in a completely different world. Adaobi barely saw her these days. Ngozi was always out, hopping from one flashy car to another, her phone constantly ringing with calls from men. While Adaobi was working hard and building dreams with Obina, Ngozi was chasing a life Adaobi couldn't relate to or judge. One afternoon, after another long day at the market, Adaobi decided to visit Obina at his place. She carried a bag of jollof rice and fried plantains, wanting to surprise him with a proper meal. As she approached his door, she noticed it was slightly ajar. Adaobi stood frozen at the doorway, the bag of jollof rice slipping from her hand as she took in the scene before her. Obina sat on his worn-out sofa, laughing heartily with another woman who was draped across his lap like she owned the place. The lady, dressed in tight jeans and a sparkling blouse, turned to look at Adaobi with a smug expression. "Ah, so this is the famous Adaobi," the woman said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Obina's smile vanished instantly. He shot to his feet, trying to explain. "Adaobi is not what you think." But Adaobi had heard enough. Her chest tightened, her ears ringing with the sound of betrayal. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall, not in front of him. "Who is she, Obina?" Adaobi demanded, her voice trembling. The other woman smirked and stood up, straightening her blouse. "I'm someone who's been here long before you," she said confidently. "Obina and I have history. He's been mine all along, darling." Adaobi turned to Obina, her heart breaking as she searched his face for answers. "Is it true? Obina, after everything I've done for you?" Obina avoided her gaze, scratching the back of his neck nervously. "Adaobi, listen, it's complicated. You're a good girl, and I didn't mean to hurt you. But what?" Adaobi interrupted, her voice rising. "You've been using me? Taking my money, my kindness, my trust, for what? For this?" She gestured towards the other woman, who crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, watching the drama unfold with an air of boredom. Obina sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Look, Adaobi, I needed help. I saw how hardworking you were, how generous, and I knew you could give me the push I needed." Adaobi's tears finally broke free, streaming down her cheeks. "A push," she whispered. "I gave you everything, Obina. My savings, my trust, my love, and you repay me with lies." The reality of it all hit her like a wave. Just weeks ago, she had handed over 200,000 Nigerian nairas, her last savings, believing she was helping him start a business. A business that, as she now realized, had never even existed. Without another word, Adaobi turned and walked out of the house, her legs trembling with each step. As she made her way home, the streets of Umuoma seemed quieter than usual, as if even the world was mourning with her. Tears blurred her vision, and her heart felt like it was being torn apart. The betrayal, the shame, the regret, it was all too much. She thought about all the warnings from her friends, all the sacrifices she had made for Obinna, and how blind she had been to his manipulation. By the time Adaobi reached her house, she was sobbing uncontrollably. She sank onto the steps of her father's compound, burying her face in her hands. For the first time in her life, Adaobi regretted believing in someone so deeply. Ngozi was sitting outside her house, painting her nails bright red, when she saw Adaobi walking down the road, her face covered in tears. Adaobi's shoulders were slumped, and her steps were slow and heavy. Ngozi quickly noticed something was wrong, but instead of rushing over, she started laughing loudly, clapping her hands. "Ah, Adaobi the lover girl, look at you now. Didn't I warn you? Love has dealt with you." Adaobi gave her a sharp look through her tears, but she didn't have the strength to talk. She dropped onto the wooden bench beside Ngozi, wiping her face with her hand. "Do you see now why I don't bother with all this love matter?" Ngozi continued, still smiling. "Men don't value love, my sister. Even if you give them your heart, your money, even your future, they will still betray you in the end." "Ngozi, please, I don't have the energy for your lecture today," Adaobi said weakly, her voice cracking. Ngozi stopped laughing and looked at her friend properly. She could see the pain in Adaobi's eyes, and her tone softened. "Ada, I'm sorry, okay? But this is why I've been telling you. Always put yourself first. Forget all this I love him talk. Men will only take advantage of you if you let them." Adaobi sniffled, her tears slowing down. "Ngozi, I gave him everything. I even gave him my savings. 200,000 naira. And for what? For him to deceive me like this." Ngozi gasped, her eyes wide. 200,000 naira? "Adaobi, you gave a man your whole future just like that? But don't worry, it's not the end of the world. At least you've learned your lesson now, right?" Adaobi nodded slowly, determination replacing the pain in her eyes. "Ngozi, I promise, I'll never settle for less again. From now on, my focus is on my success. No man will ever take advantage of me like this again. That's the spirit," Ngozi said, smiling as she patted Adaobi on the back. "Now, you need to dust yourself off and shine again. Don't waste your tears on someone who doesn't deserve them. In fact," she said, standing up and pulling Adaobi to her feet, "let's go out tonight. There's a party happening in town, and you're coming with me. You need to clear your head and enjoy yourself." Adaobi hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Okay, fine. Maybe I do need to get out of the house and think less." "Good girl," Ngozi said with a grin, dragging Adaobi into the house. "Go and put on your best dress, Adaobi. Tonight, we're leaving heartbreak behind." The night of the party arrived, and Adaobi stood in her room, staring at the pile of clothes on her bed. She picked out a simple, fitted gown that she felt comfortable in, but when she showed Ngozi, her friend frowned and shook her head firmly. "No, Adaobi," Ngozi said, crossing her arms. "This dress is too plain. You're not going to a church meeting. You're coming to shine. Try again." Adaobi sighed and went back to her wardrobe, pulling out another dress. But after several minutes of searching and more rejections from Ngozi, she sat on the bed, frustrated. "Ngozi, I don't have anything that fits your party taste," she complained. Ngozi rolled her eyes, went to her bag, and pulled out one of her sleek dresses, a shimmering black gown that hugged the body perfectly. "Here, wear this," she said, tossing it to Adaobi. Adaobi hesitated. "Are you sure? This is a bit revealing." "Exactly," Ngozi said with a wink. "You need to look bold and confident. Trust me, this dress will make you stand out." After some convincing, Adaobi slipped into the dress. When she stepped out, Ngozi gasped and clapped her hands. "Adaobi, you're too fine. See how the dress is hugging your shape. Let's go before people start missing us at the party." When they arrived at the party, the atmosphere was alive with music and chatter. The hall was lit with colorful lights, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and food. Adaobi walked in with Ngozi by her side, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As they moved through the crowd, heads began to turn. Some people whispered to each other, their eyes fixed on Adaobi. "Who's that one?" a young man asked his friend. "She looks like she's new to this kind of life," someone else commented, glancing at her unsure expression. But while some noticed her uneasiness, others were captivated by her beauty. Her glowing skin, shapely figure, and modest elegance stood out in the crowd. At the far end of the hall sat Chief Chinedu, a wealthy businessman and politician. He was a tall, imposing man in his late 40s, dressed in a crisp white agbada with gold embroidery. As a widower, he often attended social events alone, and tonight was no different. When his eyes landed on Adaobi, he was immediately drawn to her. "Who is that beautiful young woman?" he asked the man sitting beside him. The man shrugged, but Chief Chinedu was determined to find out. He called out, trying to get her attention, but Adaobi, overwhelmed by the noise and unfamiliar faces, didn't notice. Ngozi nudged her sharply. "Adaobi, someone important is calling you. Don't just stand there. Smile and act like you belong here." Adaobi hesitated, but Ngozi grabbed her hand and led her toward Chief Chinedu. As they approached, Adaobi forced a polite smile, her nerves bubbling under the surface. Chief Chinedu rose to his feet, his warm smile revealing perfect white teeth. "Good evening, young lady," he said, his deep voice cutting through the music. "I couldn't help but notice you from across the room. What's your name?" Adaobi glanced at Ngozi, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Good evening, sir. My name is Adaobi," she said softly. "Beautiful name for a beautiful lady," Chief Chinedu replied, his eyes twinkling. He handed her his business card. "If you don't mind, I'd love to stay in touch. Here's my number. Call me anytime." Ngozi quickly whispered, "Say thank you and give him your number too." Adaobi, though hesitant, took the card and exchanged numbers with Chief Chinedu. As they walked away, Ngozi leaned close and whispered, "Adaobi, you're about to enter a whole new world." When Adaobi and Ngozi got home, they kicked off their heels and sank into the soft cushions in the living room. Adaobi's face was glowing, her mood completely transformed. "That party was something else," Adaobi said, shaking her head in amazement. "Ngozi, I can't believe I've been missing out on this kind of life. All this time, I was stuck believing in true love, hoping for a better tomorrow, and still dying in poverty. Meanwhile, enjoyment is right here." Ngozi laughed, tossing her bag onto the floor. "I told you, my friend, life is too short to be suffering in the name of love. Did you see the way people were looking at you? And Chief Chinedu, giving you 500K just like that. Adaobi, you have arrived?" Adaobi smiled as she counted the crisp Naira notes in her bag. "I don't even know what to say. For once, I feel like life is finally smiling at me." The next morning, Adaobi decided to visit Chief Chinedu's mansion, as he had requested. She dressed carefully in a stylish but modest gown, wanting to make a good impression. When she arrived at the address Chief had given her, she stood at the gate, her mouth hanging open in awe. The mansion was enormous, with high walls, a well-manicured lawn, and a driveway lined with luxury cars. This is where I'm meant to be," Adaobi whispered to herself. Her heart raced with excitement as the gateman let her in. As she walked through the front door, she was greeted by a cool blast of air conditioning and the scent of fresh flowers. The interior of the mansion was even more breathtaking, with marble floors, grand chandeliers, and elegant furniture. Chief Chinedu appeared moments later, dressed in a traditional kaftan that spoke of wealth and class. He smiled warmly and gestured for her to sit. "Adaobi, welcome to my home," he said, his deep voice carrying a note of sincerity. "I'm so glad you could come." "Thank you, sir," Adaobi replied, her voice almost shy. Don't call me sir. Call me Chinedu," he said, chuckling. "I want us to be comfortable with each other." They sat down in the spacious living room, and Chief poured her a glass of juice. As they talked, he asked her questions about her life, her family, and her ambitions. Adaobi opened up about her struggles, her dreams of a better future, and how she had always believed in hard work and true love. Chief listened attentively, nodding as she spoke. Then he leaned forward slightly and said, "Adaobi, I want to tell you something. The first time I saw you at that party, I was drawn to you. Your beauty caught my eye, yes, but it was your simplicity and calmness that truly impressed me. You're different from the other women I've met. Adaobi looked down, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. Thank you, Chinedu. That means a lot to me. Chief smiled. I'm not a man who believes in wasting time. Adaobi, I think you would make a wonderful wife. I've been lonely since I lost my wife, and I want someone I can trust, someone I can build a future with. That's why I approached you at the party. Adaobi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected the conversation to take such a serious turn. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. After spending a few more minutes talking, Adaobi thanked Chief for his time and left the mansion, her mind swirling with thoughts. When she got home, Ngozi was waiting eagerly. Adaobi, tell me everything. How was the house? What did he say? Adaobi dropped onto the couch, still processing. Ngozi, that man is serious. His house is like heaven on earth. He said he approached me at the party because he thinks I'd make a good wife. Can you imagine? He even asked me to be his girlfriend. Ngozi's eyes widened, and she let out a loud whistle. Adaobi, this is Big O. Chief Chinedu wants you as his wife. My dear, you've hit the jackpot. Ngozi, are you even listening to yourself? Adaobi asked, half laughing, half shocked at her friend's words. Adaobi, think about it now, Ngozi said, sitting up straighter. Chief is a billionaire. He's older, yes, but that's better for you. You won't have to stress, except to marry him. Give him a male child if possible, and everything he owns will be yours. You will live like a queen. Adaobi hesitated, her heart conflicted. She wanted to argue with Ngozi, but her friend's words stuck in her mind. Wasn't this the kind of life she had been dreaming of since Obina shattered her heart? A few days later, after much thought and encouragement from Ngozi, Adaobi called Chief Chinedu. She accepted his proposal to be his wife. Chief was overjoyed. He arranged everything quickly, and their relationship moved faster than Adaobi had expected. As she got to know him more, she found herself warming up to his kindness and charm. Adaobi also learned more about his past. Chief's first wife and children had died tragically in a ghastly car accident years ago. It was the pain of that loss that had made him cautious about finding love again. Now, with Adaobi, he believed he had a fresh chance at happiness. Months later, the wedding bells rang, and the two tied the knot in a lavish ceremony that Adaobi could never have imagined in her wildest dreams. Dressed in a stunning white gown that sparkled in the sunlight, she walked down the aisle, her heart pounding. Ngozi, of course, was right by her side, beaming with pride. Life as Chief's wife was nothing short of extraordinary. Adaobi moved into his mansion and quickly adjusted to the luxurious lifestyle. Everywhere she turned, there were maids, chefs, and drivers ready to serve her. It was as if she had stepped into a fairy tale. One evening, Adaobi and Chief sat together in the grand living room. She was curled up on the plush sofa, sipping a glass of juice, while Chief relaxed in his armchair. Chinedu, Adaobi began, her tone playful. I still can't believe this is my life now. Sometimes I pinch myself just to make sure I'm not dreaming. Chief laughed, his deep voice filling the room. You deserve every bit of it, my darling. You've brought joy back into my life. I haven't been this happy in years. Adaobi smiled, feeling a warm flutter in her chest. She had come a long way from her days of heartbreak and struggle. As they talked about their plans for the future, Adaobi felt a strange mixture of contentment and unease. This life was everything she had ever wanted, but was she truly happy? The evening passed peacefully, their laughter echoing through the mansion. Outside, the cool night breeze rustled the leaves, while inside, Adaobi's new life as Chief's wife unfolded, one day at a time. Months into their marriage, Adaobi and Chief Chinedu were seated in the expansive dining room, sharing a quiet dinner. The air was calm, but something about Chief's expression suggested he had something on his mind. Adaobi, my love, he began, setting down his fork and looking at her with a serious expression. There's something I've been meaning to discuss with you. Adaobi looked up, slightly curious but calm. What is it, Chinedu? You know you can tell me anything. Chief leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. I know you've settled in well as my wife, and I'm grateful every day that you're here. But there's a matter about my estate I need to explain. For now, I can't add your name to my properties. Not yet. Adaobi blinked, surprised. Why not? Chief hesitated before speaking again. Adaobi, you know I've lost a family before. I want to make sure the legacy I'm building continues, and for that, I need an heir, a male child. Once we have a son together, you won't have to worry about anything. Everything I have will be secured for you and our child. Adaobi's smile faltered. She nodded slowly, her heart sinking. She wasn't sure what to say, but Chief reached across the table to hold her hand. Don't misunderstand me, he said warmly. I'll always take care of you, your parents, and even your friend Ngozi. I just need to secure my family's legacy. Trust me, my love. Later that night, Adaobi confided in Ngozi, who listened attentively, then broke into her signature confident grin. Adaobi, this is nothing to stress about. It's a simple solution. We just need to plan things properly, so you can give him what he wants, a male child. Adaobi raised a brow. Ngozi, what do you mean by plan? How do you plan for a baby to be a boy? Ngozi sat up, eager to share her wisdom. It's all about timing and positioning, my friend. To conceive a boy, you need to time your meeting with Chief around your ovulation. Male chromosomes move faster, but don't live as long as female ones. So, meeting with him on the exact day of ovulation increases the chances of a boy. Adaobi tilted her head, intrigued but skeptical. You seem to know a lot about this. Of course. Ngozi beamed. Track your cycle carefully. The ovulation day is usually 14 days after the first day of your period if your cycle is regular. And here's another thing. Try meeting with him at night, just before you sleep. Some people believe it improves the chances. Adaobi couldn't help but laugh. Ngozi, you're unbelievable. I'm serious. Ngozi insisted. And don't forget Chief loves you. He's already doing so much for your family, and even for me. That man is gold. It was true. Chief had gone above and beyond for Adaobi's parents, ensuring their comfort, and even settling a few debts they had. He'd also been surprisingly generous to Ngozi, sending her gifts and even sponsoring one of her side businesses. You're lucky, Adaobi, Ngozi said, patting her shoulder. This man treats you like a queen. You just need to give him what he wants, and everything will be perfect. A few nights later, after dinner, Chief surprised Adaobi with a tender promise. He took her hands in his voice gentle. Adaobi, I want you to know that no matter what, I'll always do more for you. For us. You've brought light into my life again, and I'll never take that for granted. Adaobi smiled, her heart warming at his words. Though the road ahead seemed uncertain, she couldn't deny that Chief's love and care for her gave her a sense of security she had never known before. One cool evening, Adaobi sat on the plush sofa in the living room, her hand resting on her forehead as she let out a small groan. Chief was out on business, and the house was unusually quiet. Her body ached in strange places, and she felt an unusual heaviness she couldn't explain. When Ngozi visited later that day, Adaobi couldn't hold back. Ngozi, I've been feeling so weak and tired these days. My back aches, I feel nauseous, and sometimes I can't even finish my favorite meal without feeling queasy. Ngozi's eyes widened as a sly grin spread across her face. Adaobi, you don't need to talk too much. These symptoms fit one thing. Oh, are you sure you're not pregnant? Adaobi blinked, the thought hitting her like a bolt of lightning. Pregnant? Ngozi, I don't think so. It can't be. Why not? When last you calculate your period? Ngozi asked, leaning forward with curiosity. Adaobi hesitated. She hadn't paid much attention to her cycle lately, but the idea stuck in her mind. Ngozi, always the proactive one, clapped her hands. Better go and do a test, my friend. Let's confirm this matter. The next day, Adaobi visited the clinic and nervously waited for the results. When the nurse finally handed her the slip and said, "Congratulations, madam. You're pregnant," Adaobi froze for a moment, then burst into laughter and tears. She couldn't wait to share the news. First, she told Ngozi, who screamed so loud the neighbors could probably hear her. "Ah, I told you. Congratulations, my dear. Chief, go hear him today." When Adaobi told Chief later that evening, his reaction was even better than she expected. His face lit up with joy, and he pulled her into a warm embrace. "Adaobi, you've made me the happiest man alive," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He promised her the world, showering her with more affection than ever before. "Anything you need, just name it," Chief said. "You and this child will lack nothing. You've given me hope again." But even in her joy, a small part of Adaobi couldn't rest. The gender of the baby wasn't known yet, and she found herself praying silently. "Let it be a boy," she thought. "Everything depends on this." Though her happiness was real, her dream of securing her place in Chief's life burned stronger than ever. A few months later, the cries of a newborn filled the air as Adaobi gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The joy that swept through her heart was unlike anything she had ever felt. As she cradled her son in her arms, tears of happiness streamed down her face. The long wait was over, and her hopes had materialized. Chief, upon hearing the news, was over the moon. He threw a grand celebration that brought dignitaries, family, and friends together. "You've given me a son, Adaobi," Chief said proudly, holding their child. "I'll make sure both of you are set for life." Over the next few years, Chief kept his promise. His love and generosity seemed boundless. He ensured Adaobi and their son lived in absolute comfort, sparing no expense for their happiness. One day, he called Adaobi into his study, a quiet seriousness in his tone. "Adaobi," he said, handing her a stack of documents. "I've updated all my papers. This house, my businesses, and my accounts now have your name and our son's name on them. My family is everything to me, and I want to make sure you're both taken care of, no matter what happens." Adaobi's heart raced as she scanned the documents, confirming his words. This was everything she had dreamed of, but instead of relief, an unsettling ambition began to creep into her mind. Some weeks later, Adaobi sat in the living room, staring at the ceiling as thoughts swirled in her head. Chief had been nothing but good to her, yet something in her couldn't shake the voice that said she needed more, absolute control over everything. Determined, she reached out to Ngozi, who arrived within the hour, her usual lively energy intact. "Adaobi, what's the matter?" Ngozi asked, noticing her friend's restless demeanor. Adaobi leaned in and whispered, "Ngozi, I need your help with something. I want to secure everything Chief has permanently." Ngozi raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" "I need you to take me to a native doctor," Adaobi said, her voice low but firm. "Someone who can give me something that will make Chief slowly disappear. It has to look natural." Ngozi's eyes widened in shock before a knowing smile crept across her face. "Adaobi, you're playing with fire. Are you sure about this?" Adaobi nodded, her eyes burning with resolve. "I've come too far, Ngozi. This is the only way to guarantee everything stays in my control." Ngozi sighed, shaking her head, but she agreed. "All right, Adaobi. I know someone who can help." When Adaobi and Ngozi arrived at the native doctor's shrine, the atmosphere was thick with incense smoke and the faint sound of drums echoing in the background. The native doctor, an elderly man with piercing eyes and a commanding presence, studied Adaobi carefully before speaking. "You are here because of greed and ambition," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "This path you have chosen is dangerous, but I will help you. Remember, the spirits do not forgive mistakes." He handed her a small white pouch tied with red string. "This powder," he explained, "must be placed in his coffee every morning for 6 days. Not 5, not 7, exactly 6 days. If you skip even one day, the charm will fail, and the spirits will turn against you. Do you understand?" Adaobi nodded quickly, clutching the pouch tightly in her hand. "I understand," she said, her voice steady but her heart racing. As they left the shrine, Ngozi turned to Adaobi. "This is not a game, Adaobi. Make sure you don't mess up." "I won't," Adaobi replied, her mind already racing with plans. That night, as she lay in bed, her thoughts ran wild. She stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her imagination painted a vivid picture of her life without Chief, traveling the world, wearing the most expensive clothes, living in luxury beyond her dreams. She murmured to herself, I'm too young to settle for this old man. I don't love him. I never did. I need his money, not his presence. My baby girl life is waiting for me. By the time the first rays of sunlight pierced through the curtains, Adaobi was wide awake, pacing the kitchen. She carefully brewed Chief's coffee, her hand steady as she mixed in the first pinch of the white substance. As Chief walked into the dining room, Adaobi greeted him with a radiant smile. "Good morning, my love," she said sweetly, carrying the coffee tray to the table. Chief smiled back at her, oblivious to the storm brewing in her heart. "Good morning, my dear. You're glowing today," he said, taking a seat. Adaobi placed the coffee in front of him, her voice soft and filled with affection. "I made it just the way you like it," she said, watching intently as he lifted the cup to his lips. As Chief took a few sips of the coffee that morning, Adaobi watched him with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. She masked her true intentions with her sweetest smile, playing the perfect wife. When Chief finished, he patted her hand gently. "Thank you, my dear," he said warmly. "You've made my morning." He got up, kissed her on the forehead, and left for work, whistling a cheerful tune as he stepped out the door. Adaobi leaned against the doorway, watching him leave with a calculated grin. In her mind, the wheels of her plan were already in motion. Hours later, when Chief returned home, his energy was unusually high, and he carried an envelope in his hand. Adaobi welcomed him with her usual charming demeanor, but she was caught off guard when Chief pulled her close and smiled broadly. "My love," he began, "I have some news that I know will make you happy. I want to visit your parents today." "My parents?" Adaobi repeated, her brow furrowing in curiosity. "Yes," Chief continued, handing her the envelope. "I bought them a house in Lekki, a big mansion. No more struggles for them. It's fully paid, and they can move in immediately." Adaobi froze, her mind racing. She opened the envelope and saw the property papers inside, bearing her parents' names. She was momentarily stunned, unsure of how to react. This was an unexpected twist. Chief's generosity knew no bounds. "Thank you," she said eventually, forcing her lips into a grateful smile. Chief hugged her tightly. "Your happiness means everything to me," he whispered. That night, Adaobi barely slept. Her thoughts were conflicted. She didn't expect Chief to go this far for her family, and it tugged at a small corner of her conscience. But her resolve remained firm. Her dreams of freedom and a lavish life were too strong to ignore. The next morning, she brewed his coffee again, her hands steady as she mixed the powder into the cup. When Chief walked in, she greeted him with an even brighter smile than the day before. "Good morning, my darling," she said, her voice dripping with affection as she handed him the cup. Chief chuckled, clearly pleased. "You're spoiling me, Adaobi," he teased, taking a sip. Adaobi giggled softly, blushing as she replied, "You deserve it, my love." Chief left for work that morning, humming a tune as he drove off. Adaobi watched him go with her usual composed smile, the pouch of white powder hidden safely in her room. Later that evening, when Chief returned, his face was glowing with excitement. Adaobi greeted him warmly, and before she could ask about his day, he pulled her close, grinning like a man with a secret. "My Ada," he said, using his pet name for her. "I have another surprise for you." "A surprise?" Adaobi asked, her curiosity piqued. Chief handed her a set of keys and a glossy flyer. "I've opened your supermarket," he announced proudly. "The biggest in town. It's everything you've ever dreamed of." Adaobi gasped, her hands trembling as she stared at the keys. "Chief, you actually did it?" "Of course," Chief said, smiling warmly. "You deserve the best, my dear." Overcome with emotion, Adaobi hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The news spread quickly. That night, Adaobi called Ngozi, who rushed over to celebrate. The two of them toasted with glasses of wine, laughing and dancing as they envisioned Adaobi's new life as the owner of the most prestigious supermarket in town. "You see, Adaobi," Ngozi said, beaming, "this is just the beginning. Chief is making your life perfect." Adaobi nodded, though her thoughts were a whirlwind. Her plans seemed increasingly questionable, but the allure of her ambitions still held her tightly in their grip. Fast forward to the fifth day. As the early morning light streamed into the kitchen, Adaobi stood by the counter, carefully brewing Chief's coffee. The pouch of white powder lay beside her, and she hesitated for a moment. Her fingers hovered over the pouch, her mind racing with thoughts of the past few days. "I've come this far," she whispered to herself, steeling her resolve. "Just one more day after this, and it's done." She carefully added the powder, stirred the coffee, and prepared to serve it, a sweet smile on her face. That morning, as Adaobi stirred the coffee, her mind drifted. Memories of Chief's kindness played like a film in her head. She thought about how far she had come, from an ordinary acre seller on the roadside to a big madam living in luxury. Her heart ached as she thought of Chief's unwavering love. He had done so much for her, taking care of her parents, providing for their son, and letting her pursue her dreams. She had grown deeply attached to him, and the thought of losing him terrified her. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I can't do this," she whispered, her hands trembling. "Who will take care of me and our son if he's gone? Who will lead me like Chief does?" Overwhelmed by guilt and love, Adaobi bolted out of the house, leaving the untouched. Coffee on the counter. She ran to Ngozi's place, tears streaming down her face. When she arrived, she could barely get her words out. "Ngozi, please take me back to the native doctor," she pleaded. "I don't want my husband to die. I love him so much. I was hurt by Obina, but that doesn't mean I should punish Chief. He's shown me nothing but love." Ngozi looked at her with a knowing smile and began to laugh softly. "I knew this day would come," Ngozi said. "That's why I wasn't worried. Adaobi, the native doctor, didn't give you poison. That powder has no side effects." Adaobi froze. "What? Are you sure?" Ngozi nodded. "I went to the native doctor before we visited. I didn't know how to convince you not to go through with it, so I played along. If I had refused, you might have gone behind my back. This way, I could protect you from doing something you'd regret." Adaobi stared at her friend, her mouth agape. "You mean Chief won't die? I won't lose him?" "No," Ngozi said firmly. "Your husband is safe." Adaobi sank to her knees, overwhelmed with relief. "Thank you, Ngozi," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me from myself." Later that day, Adaobi returned home to find Chief playing with their 3-year-old son in the living room. A warm smile spread across her face as she joined them, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. As they laughed and played together, Adaobi realized just how much she loved the life she now had, and the man who made it all possible. That evening, as the family sat together, Adaobi found herself watching Chief and their son with a deep sense of gratitude. Chief noticed her silence and reached out, holding her hand gently. "Are you okay, Adaobi?" he asked, concern in his eyes. She nodded, tears glistening. "Yes, Chief. I'm more than okay. I just realized how blessed I am to have you in my life." Chief smiled warmly. "You've brought just as much to my life, Adaobi. You and our son are my greatest treasures." In that moment, Adaobi made a vow in her heart. She would never again let greed, bitterness, or past hurts cloud her judgment. Chief had shown her the true meaning of love, selfless, enduring, and kind. The days that followed were filled with joy and laughter. Adaobi channeled her energy into her new supermarket, which flourished under her dedication. She became a source of pride to Chief, their son, and even her parents. One day, Adaobi called Ngozi over for lunch. They sat on the terrace of her mansion, sipping fresh juice as the sun cast a golden glow. "You know, Ngozi," Adaobi began, "I've learned something important. Life is not about how much you can take from others, but about the love and integrity you put into everything you do. Chief taught me that. He loved me even when I didn't love myself. And now, I love him with all my heart." Ngozi smiled. "I can see that, Adaobi. And I'm proud of you. You've grown into a woman who knows her worth. Not through shortcuts, but through grace." That night, as Adaobi tucked her son into bed and kissed Chief goodnight, she whispered a prayer of thanks. She had been given a second chance to choose love over greed, gratitude over entitlement, and faith over doubt. Moral lesson: true wealth lies not in money or possessions, but in the love, trust, and kindness we share with others. Greed blinds us to the blessings we already have, but gratitude opens our eyes to the beauty of life. Choose love, and it will always choose you back. Thank you for watching this heartfelt tale on Tales by Foxy. What do you think about Adaobi's journey? Was her decision to choose love over greed the right one? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share your reaction. Don't hold back. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Tales by Foxy. Your support helps us bring more engaging and powerful stories your way. And hey, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another tale that will touch your heart and spark your imagination. Spread the love by sharing this video with friends and family. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for being part of the Foxy family.